Talk to me. WSRadio.com.
The San Diego Council on Literacy brings you Literacy for All with your host, Jose Cruz.
Welcome back to the show. This is our third segment with Leslie Shelton. We've been talking about adult literacy and actually the source of why we need adult literacy programs and services. Leslie, I'm going to switch the gears on you a little bit.
Sure.
Are we on the right track? Because right now, what's out booming out there right now is equity. Equal access to resources, that we don't have an achievement gap. We have a access to resources gap. Is that part of the answer?
Wow. Well, that's a really good question, and I would say maybe yes and no. Mm-hmm. I don't totally agree with that. Mm-hmm. In terms of, I mean, I was working at a college level, and the issue was always, it was access. People don't have access. Mm-hmm. So I think that's certainly a piece of it. But I still feel like where there's a basic misunderstanding, really, of how learning occurs in the first place. And so we were just talking about early childhood education.
Right.
And I spent a year with the city of San Jose as the director of early childhood education. And my greatest concern there actually was, again, based on my research on early school shame, the experience of not measuring up to a perceived norm.
Right.
Is that if you can have all the access in the world to preschool, it's great, fun, it's great, but misunderstanding how language and reading and writing is acquired is actually causing much more harm, if I can call it that, then it's not for me it's not an access.
Just things. Right.
It's actually misunderstanding processing. So boys' developmental processing, language, the reason people have reading and writing problems is specific language impairment. There's a very clear cause of this. Okay. It can be addressed really by age 4, 5, 6. But if the expectation or assumption is every child should be able to read without any problem, then that's a misunderstanding.
So it's education that has to happen there at all the levels, all the places where we're teaching kids or we're interacting with kids. And that's a real basic disconnect. Yeah. So we have to work on that. Let's step away maybe from the deficit piece, because you're a big proponent and advocate for, hey, we all have talents. We all have intelligences. I said that word differently.
You did.
And you've done some research on that. I have a friend, this is one I wanted to ask you, so maybe you can help solve an argument, because he says there's one intelligence. And I'm like, there's different intelligences. Okay, so he didn't know what he was talking about, did he?
Well, it's an old theory.
Okay.
It's an old idea.
Real good. So what are those intelligences?
Yeah.
So people are smarter, maybe that's not the best word, but maybe better at certain things than other people. Is that okay to say?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, interestingly, I mean, I wound up in 1989, I decided, based on my perception around here, all these people coming in with a lot of capacities, and how in the world do we pull them in? How do we use those smarts? I was introduced to a guy named Peter Klein, who wrote a book, Everyday Genius. And in that, he talked about the work of Howard Gardner, the research of Howard Gardner. 1983, his work was on the theory of multiple intelligences. And basically what he found, he was a cognitive scientist at Harvard University, and he was working with people with brain injuries. And what he found was, dependent on where that injury was in the brain, you lost a specific capacity. You didn't lose all your capacities. And so the music, what he then began to find was each area of the brain has certain capacities. As whole beings, we use all of them. So we're all innately smart in at least 10 intelligences. Musical intelligence, Look at what do kids, before they go to school, let's look at it. They're singing, they're dancing, they're moving, they're running around, they're out in nature, they're putting puzzles together, etc. So kinesthetic, body intelligence, spatial intelligence, pattern shape, musical intelligence, which I said, interpersonal intelligence, sensitivity to others, awareness of others, personal, what's going on inside of me, self-intelligence. So naturalist was one of the last that he named. And what I found was a whole lot of the adult learners that we were working with when I really started looking at them, they were very good at seeing the big picture and all the connections. That's a high naturalist. They look like slow learners. They take more time to process.
Yes.
So we innately have all 10 intelligences. We have all of them. We use them all the time. School teaches to 2. Logic, math, which I didn't name, and language, which I didn't name. And we leave out all the other ones.
Right. And then we tell people, you're not good at these 2, and do not acknowledge the other 8 that they excel at maybe sometimes.
And it's also actually how they all, they make sense of the world. And it is actually, what I started to do was then actually bring their smarts into how do we teach reading and writing. So we put that into tutor training. How do we start recognizing how their student is smart? And start there. You start with their strength, not their weakness.
Right.
And that's what helps the weakness. So using modeling stuff, making models, drawing pictures, connecting things to a person's story, a natural I worked with college students, so I'll tie this one in the last 12 years. And they struggle with writing all the time, or organizing. So I would just have them, and the professors would always say, okay, write an outline first, then write your paper.
And that's not the way they work.
It's the opposite. It's not how they work.
Okay. Yeah, and that kind of describes me, too. I'll get to the same place, but it'll be all out of order, and then I have to come back and put it in order.
I had them just take every idea they had and just stick it on a sticky note. I use color sticky notes.
Right.
Put it don't worry about their order. Just get it down. Put it out where you can see it. And then you can pick the sticky note up and move it around, and it will self-organize into 3 or 4 categories. Then you can write your outline.
And then we tell people that's not the right way to do it. Right. You're supposed to do it in an order.
I had students go, "Oh my God, thank God you finally have solved this for
I'm
me."
smart. I could do this.
Yeah, and I said, well, you're just a systems thinker, so you have to see the big picture first, all the pieces, but you got to see the big picture in order for you to then see how it breaks down, and then you can put it in order.
Yeah. Well, I come back to this question quite often because what you're describing to us is information that is vital for all of us to have, especially at the teaching level, how we're preparing our educators to work with our kids. What can we be doing at that level to make the system changes happen so that...
That's one of the toughest ones. It's a big question. I think, education is beginning, the pressure that was on them, and I talk a lot about the pressure to succeed. It's on educators, it's on the system to teach educators, it's on the teacher, and it's on the student. But basically, in terms of the system, all the emphasis on accountability and measuring and testing kind of wound up shutting down people's creativity. Again, focusing on back to basics wound up actually causing more problems, not less, because you take away all of their smarts. And so working with schools and teacher education, there's a lot that's being done right now, I think, to understand the differences in which how people process. And bringing multiple intelligences into the classroom has been a movement. But I think for teachers, the ability to be creative, to bring in music, art, movement, dialogue, poem, and actually do assessment, allow people to show how they understand something in different forms other than just filling out a piece of paper.
We do for professionals something called a 360 evaluation. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah.
So you have people anonymously do an evaluation of your skills. And I'm not sure why we don't do that with young people. It was done for me, and one of the things I'm not quite that linear or concrete. I'm very abstract, random, and I'm good with people, which surprises the heck out of me. And so here's this evaluation that I got, and it's like, dude, you're not a very good goal setter or a good planner, et cetera. And then you get to the very last page of this thing that says, you're off the scale as an ambassador, a communicator, or promoter, or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, I'm glad to know that, because I'm apparently not good. And so, we talk about aptitude and preparing children for maybe a career that they have some talent in already at a very young age, and we're missing that.
We're missing it and actually shutting it. We wind up shutting it down, and then they feel like what I described as the imposter syndrome when we were chatting earlier, is that even when they get into a career where they're really highly successful, I worked with a full colonel on a trip to Bhutan, and at the last day, she was climbing a hill with me, and she said, I had a reading problem when I was a kid. She retired full colonel. She actually never really saw her own skills as good as she was. So you can actually get into a career but still not even acknowledge your own success in that.
Right. So more important for us to be looking at, we talk about the present, looking at what's right now, and right now, the present, and what are people doing that we should be applauding and reinforcing and taking and using it to build up other skills. So we're going to be back with our last segment with Leslie Shelton. We're getting some really good stuff here. So so glad if you're listening to this show live or on the podcast. And so join us for the last segment in just a few minutes here. I'm Jose Cruz. You're listening to the Literacy for All radio show on WS Radio, the worldwide leader in Internet talk.
I've heard this is like one of the best pizza spots in town.
Yes, it is.
I'll do a slice of pepperoni, slice of vegetarian.
You got it.
And I will pay for all of that in 3 days.
In 3 days? What's that mean?
Well, wait, you accept credit cards. That money's not going to hit your account for 3 days anyway.
I need my money quicker.
At Chase, we hear you. With Express Funding, card payments are in your Chase account the next business day. Go to chase.com/expressfunding. Chase for business, so you can.
Compensated participation. All businesses are subject to credit approval. Not all clients are eligible for next business day funding, and additional terms, conditions, and restrictions apply.
Donate cash, furniture, clothes, and other gently used household items to Father Joe's Villages and get a nice tax break in April. Every donation is tax deductible. Believe you can make a difference. Be Father Joe. Go to neighborhood.org or call 1-800-HOMELESS to donate today.
Life is full of misadventures, from car crashes to home fires to getting choked out on the mat. Yes, I said getting choked out because I'm Carlos Kramer, jiu-jitsu competitor, MMA and media personality, and mild-mannered insurance agent. You can follow my adventures on Kick-Ass Radio, and I can protect you from life's misadventures at Kramer Insurance. Home, auto, life, business, and workers' comp. We're at KramerINS.com, and I want you to join my world.
This is Bill Gruber with BizVid Communications, a Southern California video production leader. We've been honored to sponsor, produce, write, and host many of the fine programs on WS Radio over the years. So we understand how important the internet and your website exposure are. As video producers, we know the tricks and secrets to incorporate video to increase your search engine optimization and business success. Visit bizvidcommunications.com to see what we can do for you. BIZVID communications.com.
Too much to do? Not enough time to get it done? Call on the experts at Another 8 Hours for your business support needs. By partnering with Another 8 Hours, we allow you to focus on the more important matters, like being in front of your clients, doing what you do best, rather than being stuck at a desk poring over paperwork, rummaging through emails, returning phone calls, and struggling to get everything done by yourself. Meanwhile, your family and social life are going down the drain. Go to another8hours.com or call 8 more hours. That's 866-734-6877.
Hi, this is Rob Barnett, VinVillage.com, where wine lovers connect. Be sure to tune in weekly to Vin Village Radio for exclusive, in-depth interviews with the who's who in wine and food.
Can you imagine a world without children? A world where children don't play, or dream, or imagine.
At St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, we're working every day to find cures for diseases that strike down children. Because we can't imagine a world without children. Can you?
Finding cures, saving children. St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. To learn how you can help, log on to our website, stjude.org.
Talk to me. WSRadio.com.
The San Diego Council on Literacy brings you Literacy for All with your host, Jose Cruz.
Welcome back to the show. This is segment 4 with Leslie Shelton. You're listening to the Literacy for All radio show on WS Radio. And we've been talking about a number of topics with information that's essential to anyone who's interacting with young learners, children, students, whatever, each other for that matter, given the importance of the different gifts that we have and maybe sometimes how we present what we would tend to call deficits in learning and reading and writing, which we're not all made the same. So that's what we're talking about, and it's just some of the things that happen emotionally that relate to that. So we like to do things in black and white, and that's just not the real world.
No.
And so Leslie Shelton's in town. She's doing a presentation to the affiliated programs of the San Diego Council on Literacy, and her topic is the role of emotions in teaching and learning. Can you give us kind of what's the
snapshot?
Not quite, more than the elevator speech on that.
Yeah. Well, I didn't bring my little quotes in with me, but one of the role of emotions in learning. Emotions, we as human beings, we have a very involved emotional system, but we tend to go around thinking that the way we fix things is cognition. We should be rational and just set that aside and what's wrong with you, blah, blah. But in reality, in the research and in our own lives, we well know that actually it's always emotions that overtake thinking, block thinking. And so what took me down this road was not only the early experience with the adult learners and seeing their own early school pain, the pain of that early school experience. I had starting my doctorate, and I was really interested in working with adult learners own created material. And I had to choose a doctoral professor to work with, and she was fabulous. I started working with her, and within about a month or two, she said, "Leslie, I have a recurrence of cancer, and if you want to choose somebody else, you can." Bottom line is I chose to stay with her, and I had worked with cancer patients. I was well aware that their experiences people either pull away or they get closer. There's no in between. My decision was to work with her. She was phenomenal. And what happened for me was, in the process of being present to her through that whole experience, she had a transplant, infusions, and she died within 10 months. And so at the end of that experience, my whole work shifted into, I was well aware that the pain of that loss, I couldn't think, I couldn't write. I mean, I could go to work and kind of get through the day. So why did I start to look at the role of emotions? It was really, I said, I have to recognize the pain and shame, the impact on the adult learner themselves.
Right.
And so what I looked at was shame, their own name, their own language, which was the shame and pain of their early school experience. So that then led me into understanding and looking at the affect system, which is the emotional system of human beings, and then how we form a sense of self and what happens. So as young children, we form a sense of self in comparison to others. And that creates an identity. What I was seeing with the adult learners, this is what triggered my interest, was they became quite capable. They got better jobs. Enrique was testifying before Congress on a national level. They had a lot of more success in their lives, and yet they didn't recognize their own success. And I heard them introduce themselves to others. I heard Enrique. He went from 4th, 5th grade reading level to 10th grade reading, 12th grade reading level. He could read anything. He would introduce himself to folks and say, "Hi, I'm Enrique, I'm a non-reader." That's an identity. That was a picture. And so what I wanted to figure out was, why is it that that doesn't change in the face of success? Because all our emphasis is on success. Right. And then they can't even, he didn't see his own success. He said, "Leslie, this is what my experience is." I asked him what his early experience was about just having a reading difficulty. He said, it's like your wife is having a baby and you go to the hospital and you walk in on the ground floor and you're waiting for the elevator and everybody else is on the 4th floor.
Oh, right.
Painting a picture. So then I really looked at the emotional system. We have 6 negative emotions, 2 positive emotions. Now the good news here is the 2 positive emotions. So, and I'll talk a bit about that.
I should know what these are, but go ahead.
No, but so, I mean, shame, rage, fear, these are the negatives, dismell, etc., and they get triggered. So, but the 2 positive emotions are, one, they're on a scale, interest/excitement and enjoyment, joy. Those are the 2, and I'll talk about this afternoon. That's what we think students give up, they run away, they lose motivation, and then we criticize them. They're not engaged, they're not focused, yada, yada. Actually, what I found is just, and this was me working with students at the university running academic support, was really if we could simply re-engage interest, what's interesting here, excitement, or reconnect to what's enjoyment, joy, that resets the experience of shame affect is a biological response. So it's biological first. And it's when you stand up in front of a group and everything goes out of your head, that's shame affect. And it's biological. And it's literally, it's not flight or fight. It's what happens in the brain. It comes from our animal nature. First person to study this was Charles Darwin. But actually what happens is, there's a chemical secreted in the brain that blocks neurotransmission. Reason you can't think. This is why emotions trump thinking.
Okay.
You can't think, but it only lasts for a couple seconds. So it doesn't have to overtake your entire life. But so on and on and on.
Yeah,
but once that happens, so really you just reconnecting. So I work with folks around test anxiety and just said, okay, there's a block. Okay, what's interesting? Or you were talking about...
Well, I'm thinking about the high schooler I have at home.
Exactly.
And it's like, okay, we need to work on this because the interest, excitement, scale.
It's gone. Yeah.
And then the enjoyment is like, it's not kicking in.
Anything that's daunting. So here's a clue for you. Anything that's daunting. So here's a senior going to a new school. All new people, all new situation. That can be daunting. That breaks, that actually will trigger shame affect. He doesn't feel ashamed. It's not an experience of shame, but it's an experience of too much. It's too much. And so it will totally break interest and excitement. So figuring out, this is where I find parents get lost. If it's athletic, it's what is one thing he's interested in, engaged in. And start there.
Very good, very good.
And don't take things that they love away. Students who are struggling in school, I saw this with parents. This hurt me more than anything. A child who was doing really well, highly musical, in a school that was very musical, but she wasn't doing so well academically and had some reading problems. They took her out of that school. She loved sports and loved to play soccer. They took her out of the school and put her in a different school that didn't have good music programs and they wouldn't allow her to play soccer. And then they wanted to know why she was trying to kill herself.
Right.
She had lost all of it, and she said to me, "I've lost everything I live for." So those are a few kernels for don't take away what they love.
Leslie, we're going to have to bring you back for another 4th segment. So appreciate you. And thanks for producing this content for our listeners because it can go a long ways. And we just need more of it. So ways that people can get, I better do this. We know what? I'll do this in the email that we send out to everyone. But you've been listening to Leslie Shelton and the Literacy for All radio show on WS Radio, the worldwide leader in Internet talk.
raised $8,000 to build schools for South African children.
After realizing how many people go hungry in San Diego, I now volunteer at a food pantry.
I'm spending the next year doing volunteer projects across 3 countries and helping in ways they designate to be the most helpful.
The World Link program at the Joan B. Kroc Institute for Peace and Justice recognizes the potential of youth as agents of social change. Learn how you can help youth become a generation of leaders in action at peace.sandiego.edu.
In the military, things can change in an instant. Your personal life is just the same. Just like you protect our country, you want your family protected. That's why thousands of military members trust Navy Mutual Life Insurance. Navy Mutual is nonprofit, providing current and former Navy, Marine, and Coast Guard families with life insurance, no sales fees, and no military service restrictions. Protecting members on active duty and beyond. Call 1-800-628-6011, 800-628-6011, NavyMutual.org, insuring those who serve.
Nowadays, internet devices are an integral part of your home. Everyone in your family has a smartphone, tablet, or a computer. Life is easier knowing that all your devices are secured and your family can surf the internet carefree. ESET Multi-Device Security Pack does just that. One license for all your devices. With ESET, it's simple to stay protected and save money. Enjoy safer technology with ESET Multi-Device Security Pack at ESET.com. That's ESET.com.
I've heard this is like one of the best pizza spots in town.
Yes, it is.
I'll do a slice of pepperoni, slice of vegetarian.
You got it.
And I will pay for all of that in 3 days.
In 3 days? What's that mean?
Well, wait, you accept credit cards. That money's not going to hit your account for 3 days anyway.
I need my money quicker.
At Chase, we hear you. With Express Funding, card payments are in your Chase account the next business day. Go to chase.com/expressfunding. Chase for business, so you can.
Compensated participation. All businesses are subject to credit approval. Not all clients are eligible for next business day funding, and additional terms, conditions, and restrictions apply.
Tired of presentations with no impact, no inspiration, and no traction? Do dull speakers have you and your team disengaged and distracted by smartphones? Christopher McAuliffe brings energy, insights, and 2 decades of experience, delivered with punch, humor, and heart. Your team will leave energized, uplifted, and with a sense of purpose. Visit ChristopherMcAuliffe.com to bring some heat to your next speaking engagement. McAuliffe. ChristopherMcAuliffe.com.
Hey, it's Catherine from Listen Local Radio. Moe's Guitars has proudly served the San Diego music community since 1975. Specializing in guitars, basses, mandolins, banjos, and ukuleles, they buy, sell, trade, and consign. If you're looking for lessons, repairs, accessories, and cool gear, you found the right place. Located in downtown La Mesa Village, stop by and check out their digs or visit moesguitars.com or their Facebook page. MOZEguitars.com, 619-698-1185.